Recently I was reading this study and then I flew away. True story. No, that's not true at all. I'll tell you what is true though. I'm touring across the country, so make sure you get your tickets to Geelong coming up very soon. So, you don't want to know what was the truth though. There was this study about, do you or not? Well, the study was, if you do want to know, otherwise you would have clicked off by now, but if you are interested, it was about the fact that marriage, relationships, kapow! They're on the way down. And the reason that they're going on this slide instead of this slide really is because people are just don't know what they want. And the reason that they don't know what they want is because of bread dissatisfaction. Now, what does that mean? Well, shut your fucking mouth. I'm going to tell you it means that when you are not bred to kind of just be content with life, and that is exactly what, all marketing is geared to. And I'm sorry, I know that this is all like, it's all society's fault, man. You're just your puppet with some strings on you. So I'm trying to get you, because I do actually believe that personal responsibility is the key out. But look, in a consumerist society such as the one that we have now, what is the aim? The aim, because how do you get people to buy things? You create pain. You say, you don't have this, but if you had it, your life would be so good. And you know that guy from the Jetsons, he would be, I think his name was George, he would be even happier than his flying car if he had a spatula from Barbecues Galore that on the other side has a beer opener on it. Oh, look at that. That's all it is, yeah? So it's always just trying to create this, like, you don't have this, you suck. And then there's also just, as everybody was always talking about, the fact that there was that thing with millennials and Gen Z of just like trying to build up their self-esteem. Well, actually, I think it's different with Gen Z. I think that our generation was trying to build up with our self-esteem, and their generation was put up. But the thing is that people are always just like hyper-focusing on these like silly societal norms that move you away from the basics in life, such as you really only have a window frame of about 15 years to find a partner and have some kids if that's what you want. Yeah? And that's the goal. And most people just sit around shopping forever. And the reason that they do is dissatisfaction. Now, I've talked about this before, but when you are looking for a long-term partner, don't check underwater because mermaids don't exist. And that's the first tip. And I don't know why I was chuckling at that. That's a really serious point. But then the second one is that when you are looking for a partner, immediately what people do now, after that like little honeymoon period, in inverted commas, is over, because you never get to the honeymoon, do you? You only have that like nice little chemical thing of just being like, yes, I always wanted a redhead. Not really, but I've convinced myself that I always did. After that, you start looking at them and you're being like, a ginger? Yuck. You know? Have we all been there? Probably not, because gingers pretty much are an endangered species, but let's all just imagine that we've dated Ed Sheeran, or Ed Sheeran's mum, who I assume looks exactly like Ed Sheeran except for with long hair. Yeah? That happens, and then the next point after that is you start looking for all the problems in them. Now, that, because of the fact that, you can just get divorced whenever you want now, but on top of that, the other thing is that if you are trained to think, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? There's something wrong with that. That starts impacting on everything that you see in the world. You are always just looking for what's wrong. And I think that the internet is a huge problem with it, myself included. Thank you very much. Is always just being like, this sucks for this reason, and this also sucks. You notice that there is just this endless level of critical thought that happens in there. Now, the thing is that as soon as you start being critical about someone, you hone in on it. Because your brain is designed to pick up on negative things, it is going to start honing in on it, and it will never get out of your head until you do this. You start focusing on what you like about the partner. It is very, very simple stuff, but all the studies show that the reason that people stay in long-term relationships is because they just keep thinking about the things that they like about the person as opposed to the things that they don't like about the person. That's really the divider. In terms of the amount of fights, Wouldn't you know? That massively decreases how many you have. Because if you're always thinking about what's wrong with them, you're always just thinking like, I just need to bring it up, I need to bring it up, I need to bring it up. And it's just like, your hair looks shit when it's short. You know, like that starts happening. So you can't allow that to start taking root in your head. The way that you get out of it is, and this is the first warning sign, first off, before we'll back up for a second. The warning sign is always when you start thinking like, like I could do better. That level there where you start looking in on the partner. But the thing is that people always think that, and then guess what happens? They turn 40 and then they can't do any better anymore. Everybody always says, and I see this as a disqualifier the older that I get, people, this is a terrible thing. This is always why, have you ever heard this conventional wisdom before? Have you? I know I'm putting out a lot of things at you at once. Sorry about that. But have you heard this, yes or no? Write in the comments that the people that are in their happiest marriages are the ones that stay together with like their high school sweethearts. And they haven't really had any other experience with anyone else. And so they just see that person as just being like, yeah, that's the imprint. Well, there's a lot of other things that are happening in there as well. It's because when you start having multiple partners, you start comparing them to the ones that you liked, the ones that you thought in your mind kind of like they got away. That's what starts happening. And so anyone that is in front of you, they already have this like comparison qualifier mesh to go into. And then when you start asking people about that mesh, it's most of the time ridiculous. It is stupid things like, oh, their banter was off. Well, teach them to be a better conversationalist then. This is the whole thing about a successful relationship. And this is what the studies show as well. A successful relationship is one where you kind of accept the faults in the other person and you don't focus on them. That's the first point. You focus on the things that you like about the person. And then the thing is that you have this idea in your head. And this is the path to success in life. Because people that always have this thing of just like, oh, the time wasn't right. Because this is a way of looking at the world. This isn't just partners. This is everything. When you start looking at the world in this way of like, it didn't feel right. Or the time was off. Or I've accidentally put a hole in my pants and now my willy's hanging out of it. Instead of focusing on the fact that most of your pants don't have hole in it. So it's still pretty functional. But like, they're always focusing on these kind of things of just like, and then that's the end, right? They have this idea of like, that is the end. Once something is no longer working, that's the end of it. People that are successful in life, it doesn't matter if it's this, doesn't matter if you're becoming like some shares portfolio tycoon, doesn't matter what it is, they have, you've heard me say this before, a growth mindset. They have a mindset of, okay, well, that person isn't perfect. And they're also very aware of the fact that they're not perfect either. And then they have this idea that, okay, well, we can grow together as a semi-combined entity that is like that. One of those Lovecraftian horror films where like the ram starts morphing into other rams. That's you in a successful relationship. You too could be that mutinous freak that Nicolas Cage shoots in 4 of its heads. That's what you're looking for, though. You are looking for, first off, the things that you like about the person. That's going to extend the factor of the relationship. But the other thing is as well, and this is pivotal, is that a lot of the time, the things that you think are going to make you happy. This is a trip. This is another thing that really freaks me out about the human brain. The things you think are going to make you happy in a relationship do not. Well, sometimes they do. But sometimes they deserve this elongated tonality. Because a lot of the time, when you are in a relationship with someone and then you think that like, sense of humor is really important to me. Then you are in a relationship with someone that's really funny. And then you realize, oh, they can't pay their bills. And now I have to pay theirs. And then all of a sudden it doesn't become that important anymore. You know what all the studies show is actually the most important thing about being in a relationship with someone? And this is something that when you are getting into a relationship, you should be thinking about this. This is one of the true warning signs of a relationship. You ready for it? Is the other person happy a lot of the time? Is their disposition happy? People that are happy end up, it's really not that surprising, end up being in long-term relationships. Every time people are just like, there's heaps of problems, I think we're going to fix it. Have you ever heard anyone in a relationship when they're just being like, we're going to have to fix it together, it's a long road ahead? If they're always focusing on that, what happens? They're just always focusing on the problem instead of like, oh, okay, 95% of everything else is fine. And this is the other thing. It's quite a Buddhist way of looking at relationships as well, especially when you get to that 7-year hump, which definitely exists, yeah? When you get to that 7-year hump, it's very easy to focus on the problems because the immediate thing is kind of just like, well, we didn't have babies, or like, even though we did have babies, the babies are old enough. So time to move on. Quick, let's fuck someone else before we run out of sperm. You know, like that, right? Like that's what starts happening. Anyway, when you are in those relationships and you get to that length, very easy to do that. What gets you through it, I suppose, is just focusing on what you like about the other partner and being generally happy in the rest of your life and realizing, and it's very Buddhist, it's kind of like this idea that, isn't this deep? When you die, the problems that you were facing in your life will kind of just drift into the ether and other people will pick up those problems and it won't really matter if you were born or not. Like your specific dharma and the problems that you were attracting into your life and that you were dealing with, because this is the whole thing, yeah? There are a lot of things that you could focus on that you would see as a problem or not, right? So the fact that I don't have any tea left in my cupboard is a massive problem for me! Nobody seems to be helping me. But with other people, that's not a problem at all. Do you see where I'm going with this? Because I don't really. I'm saying that when you are focusing on your unique specific problems, and you will have this is the other thing, you will have very unique problems with your partner. There might be some common flaws that are there, but a lot of the time, the ones that really irk you are specific to you. Meaning that you have to work on it as long as they work on it as well. But the thing that will always get you through is if you picked a happy partner, so says the science, right? So that's really what you're looking for in a relationship. You are not looking for the perfect partner. You are not focusing on that, like, it didn't work out for most of these things. Sometimes it just genuinely doesn't work out and then people just kind of float apart. But usually if you have the building block of happy and going into the relationship for the relationship to grow, as opposed to just sitting there and focusing on that one person and just being like, not big enough tits. Man, like breast implants exist now. Just ask if they can get one, you know? Anyway, if you like that, make sure, moving straight into the end now. If you like that, make sure that you sign up to Jordan Shanks, where I will be giving you all of the latest in how to get ahead in life. Because honestly, that's one there, yeah? This is something that really scares me about my generation in particular, and it'll scare me even more about Gen Z when they get older, which is that a lot of them just don't seem to be capable of being in a long-term relationship. If you aren't even capable of the basics of that, how are you going to sort looking after children? Yeah? How are you even going to get to having kids in the first place? Like, the human race will die out, and it's entirely your fault because you can't get it together. And Jordan Shanks will help you get it together. It really will. Like it has. It's made millionaires. It has made people that have just quit their jobs and followed their lifelong passion. They've gotten their lifelong partner out of this channel. And it is all because all of these self-help books, wouldn't you know, have incredible insight in them. I mean, think about that as a general guideline. If you know that and everybody else you don't know, you start looking at that, right? Like you start looking at that frame of, are these people happy? Are they just focusing on the things that they don't like about the other person as opposed to focusing on the things that they do like about it? It'll become a very quick predictor of who's going to stay in a relationship and who doesn't. And that is the free stuff. What's behind the paywall? What a mystery. I'll tell you right now, actually, one thing that is behind the paywall at the moment, which you might be very interested in, is we just did something where everybody who was an expert in everything just really simplified what 10 years of whatever they were studying was in a couple of words. Man, you got 100 people there, 100 experts just giving you, like, if you can't be bothered sitting through a masterclass, damn, they've just given you the cheat notes of that, spark notes for getting ahead. There was people there that are, long-term investors, interior designers, all that kind of stuff. That's worth it in itself. It's a tiny amount of money. Sign up today. Stop being stingy.